Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we have got this big area of high pressure which is now starting to dominate. It is going to give progressively warmer and drier conditions over the coming days, and as we head into perhaps middle to late next week we could see temperatures even into the mid-teens. There is some uncertainty about those higher temperatures. It just all depends on how much trapped cloud we see under the higher pressure and whether we see any weak weather fronts trying to push in from the north. But regardless, it's looking likely to be in the mid-teens. Whether it's 16 degrees or whether it's more 12, 13 degrees, it is looking much milder and drier, and that is a very good sign as we do head into the early stages of meteorological spring. Then we'll have a look at the longer range charts, which are starting to show a few little curveballs as we do head through the next couple of weeks. Both the GM and ECMWF are trying to build a bit of blocking to our north. Nothing really cold at this stage, no massively cold plunges, but the synoptic changes are of great intrigue. It's kind of the first building blocks to potentially a little bit of a blast back towards wintry conditions. That is a real possibility through March, as we have said in previous videos, as we do head into early spring with the polar vortex high up in the stratosphere starting to break down, which it always does this time of year. It does encourage and promote more blocking patterns into that early spring period. That's why we do regularly see short but pretty intense cold blasts through perhaps March and April. So perhaps tentative signs that the GM and ECMWF are having a go at that. But on the other hand, the GFS not really seeing that at all, and actually turning us incredibly warm into the middle portion of March, with the upper air temperatures getting into the double digits, which is exceptionally mild for early to mid-March. And temperatures could respond by being into the high teens perhaps, maybe even an isolated 20 degrees if we get lucky. So all very interesting, that longer range. All patterns are on the cards. Of course, as we head through spring, we can see much colder conditions, but we also can see early warmth as well. So all options are on the table, and we'll explore that in the second half of the video. So remember, if you enjoy my videos, which you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see that we've got a bit of precipitation in the far north at the moment, not too much going on. Elsewhere, it is very dry, and we can see high pressure is firmly building in. Recording this around 9 PM in the evening, we still have some chilly upper air temperatures around, and you can see that with frosts overnight already. Temperatures could drop down to -1, -2 quite widely through this evening, and that will continue over the next few days. Even towards Sunday night, maybe even Monday night, we could see a few isolated frosts, but at the moment still very cold conditions are ensuing, and that's just simply chilly upper air temperatures, clear skies. Those temperatures are dropping away rapidly, and you see it across much of Europe here, and it's only going to turn milder though over the coming days, fortunately. Now, if you have a look at the latest UKV, you can see that bits and bobs of precipitation in the far north through this evening, trying to head southwards into the first day of March, but not really having too much success. The only real impact of that disintegrating weather front is perhaps some thicker cloud, unfortunately, which could give more cloud across the Midlands, Northern England. Maybe the far south and southeast could escape for most of the day before it does start to move in. Now, that cloud could actually help with the temperatures overnight, could keep them more widely above freezing. We'll have to wait and see tomorrow. But then into Sunday, look at this, another very bright and sunny day, very dry conditions, a few odd showers, and another weak weather front moving in, and it's kind of a rinse and repeat pattern. Thicker cloud clearing through, but again disintegrating away into Monday, and another pretty dry day, but reasonably cloudy. Into Tuesday, pretty dry as well, but this is where we could see those weak weather fronts interacting in the north. Again, not having too much success pushing southwards, and you can see it gets pushed away once again into Wednesday. And this is where that very mild air could push in. Look at the upper air temperatures between 5 to 8 degrees. Again, if we see some sunshine, the surface temperatures would respond. As I said, mid-teens definitely looks possible. But in this scenario, we have got that weak weather front in the north, and we do have a bit thicker cloud around, and temperatures more around the low teens instead of being mid to high teens. So still mild, still dry for most, just not quite as warm and as sunny as we'd hope. But, of course, things can change. It's day 5, and those sort of small little details like cloud amounts, slight positioning of weather fronts, that can all change and will make a big difference if that does occur. Now if we do look through this evening, widespread frost occurring. Very cold into Saturday morning, but luckily because of the strength of the sunshine this time of year and the fact that the nights are shortening, the temperatures should rapidly jump above freezing around 9-10 a.m. tomorrow. So yeah, should be actually not too bad by lunchtime, 8-9 degrees. And into the afternoon, just about perhaps touching double digits, but still feeling a little bit chilly. Into Sunday, again, a frost occurring in places, but it will all depend on those cloud amounts, but especially in the south and the east, where we do avoid the cloud, or the majority of the cloud, those temperatures falling away. And then into Sunday, temperatures, again, 9, 10, more widely 11 or 12 though. Into Monday, again a frost in the far south where it's still a little bit chilly, still got those clearer skies, but by the afternoon temperatures rising more widely, 10 to 12 degrees. Tuesday again, could just about see a frost in the far south, and by the afternoon temperatures rising once again, 10 to 12 degrees, so quite a big diurnal range there early next week. And then into Wednesday, not quite as much of a widespread frost as upper air temperatures start to rise, and by Wednesday afternoon, look at that, widely double digits for many. 13-14 degrees looks like the top temperature here, but as I said, could get slightly higher than that if we do see that sunshine breaking through. Now, if you look at the latest GFS now, you can see we've got the high pressure building in at the moment, and it is giving dry and fine conditions over the next few days. Into the middle of next week, this is where we could see that push of southerly winds and the upper air temperatures getting to around that 5+ degree mark. So pretty mild, but nothing too exceptional if we're being completely honest. Nothing amazing, just really pretty pleasant. But doesn't last too long. Late next week into the following weekend, we do see a breakthrough off the Atlantic. No deep low pressures associated with it, so we're not expecting massive amounts of rain, but we would see cloud, some precipitation, and just generally a change in air mass, so it would turn a bit colder for a time. And then we do see a bit of a westerly fest starting to take over. But fortunately, there's a lot of high pressure involved, especially in the south, which should mean it remains fairly dry for England and Wales, or at least southern portions of those areas. Scotland, though, Northern Ireland, probably would see rain, and Republic of Ireland would be right on the cusp because we'd be very close to those weather fronts, but equally high pressure could ridge in as well. It's this point though, as we get into the longer range, where high pressure does build in with a pretty far-fetched south to southwesterly, and look at this, the upper air temperatures jump potentially to around 10 degrees at 850 HP. And if we do zoom in, you can see that little pocket of 10 degree air there, really quite mild. And at the surface, look at this, mid to high teens quite widely, 16, 17 degrees. And if we got a high resolution run looking at this, wouldn't be surprised seeing it isolated 18, 19. And if we saw it build for a couple of days, you couldn't even rule out an isolated 20. I don't think it's going to appear on this run, probably just stay in those mid to high teens, but definitely a possibility if this sort of pattern occurs, which just shows you don't need amazing synoptics, you don't need any exceptionally mild southerlies or big blocking highs. You do just need mild air mass, transient high pressure, and those temperatures do respond accordingly. Now, if you follow up, have a look at the latest GM, it is polar opposites, if we're being honest. High pressure building in, being very similar over the coming days. And when we see that Atlantic breakthrough, perhaps into next weekend, low pressure dives southwards. Now, that's not what the GFS does. And look what replaces it towards Iceland. High pressure, and we pull in a northeasterly wind. Now, initially, there's not that much cold air to tap into. It would be chilly, would be below average. But if this did get going, there is some very cold air that's starting to move into Scandinavia, which we could tap into in the subsequent days. Of course, we are heading into March. The cold air to our north and our east is running out, so we can't expect to see anything too amazing, but definitely a possibility. And you can see that cold air flooding in. And you can see mild air pushing into Eastern Europe, cold air pushing into Northern and Western Europe. So yeah, very interesting. A really quite chilly easterly wind there. Again, wouldn't expect anything exceptional at the surface, but by day temperatures struggling, similar conditions to what they are now, maybe slightly colder. And of course, the feel-like temperature would be much, much colder as we are dragging that air off a very chilly North Sea. Now, the east of the Earth isn't the same, but it's similar in terms of it's a little bit out of the ordinary. It tries to build that blocking in the north. High pressure firmly building in over the coming days. Again, that breakthrough from low pressure next week, and that low dives southwards. Now, it doesn't produce an easterly wind. That high pressure doesn't go to Iceland. It actually goes to Greenland. And we do produce this bit of blocking high. And it could, if it got going, allow a bit of a northerly to develop. You can see some cold areas flooding out of the Arctic, but it doesn't quite head towards the UK and kind of gets held up as the jet stream breaks back through. So as I said, no exceptionally cold patterns here from these runs, but tentative signs, hints that perhaps a bit of a change could be coming in from the GM and the ECMWF. But of course, GFS, completely different, high pressure and control, big, strong jet stream coming in off the Atlantic, push northwards, of course, very positive NAO, no signs of anything cold at all, mild or even warm in its extended range, whereas the other two runs are a little bit more intriguing, perhaps showing signs the winter might not be done with us if those synoptics do get going. But again, very tentative ifs. Now, finally, if we look at the latest ensembles, if you look at the upper air temperatures from the latest GFS, you can see we are well below average at the moment, back towards average through this weekend, and then well above average into next week before a bit of a drop-off as we do head to around that 8th to 10th of March point. You can see lots of uncertainty, some cold runs appearing, probably runs similar to the ECMWF or even GEM, but precipitation is pretty low, which is a good sign, which means that majority of runs at least have high pressure nearby, no big stormy spells from the latest runs, which is a very, very positive pattern. Even if a westerly wind pushed in, it does look like at least high pressure will still be fairly strong to keep it pretty dry in the south. But then look at that thicker green line, that's the operational GFS, and look at that, it peaks at 10 degrees at 850 HP, and that doesn't sound amazing, but that's around 10, 11 degrees above average for the time of year. Of course, if we saw something 10 or 11 degrees below average, we'd be looking at the minus 10, minus 12 isotherm. That would be exceptionally cold. We would be talking about a really quite chilly, cold, snowy spell. So we're seeing the equivalent of that just on the positive end of anomalies. So yeah, very interesting from the GFS today. We'll have to wait and see what does come from that. I suspect it's an anomalous chart, but definitely has my intrigue as it could be very warm if that did occur. Now finally, if we compare to the ECMWF, it's not fully come out yet, but you can see roughly very similar over the next week, going above average into next week, and then dropping back down towards average as we do head into the middle of the month. But again, tentative signs of some cold runs, but equally some milder runs occurring, and we'll just have to wait and see which one does win out. You can see the different options within those operational runs, and yeah, we'll just have to see whether the GM and the ECMWF is right with a bit of a high pressure building to our north, or whether it is the GFS that's right. To be honest, I probably would side with the GM and the ECMWF just because what we're seeing in the stratosphere, something I'll update you on in the next few days, and of course generally what happens during early spring is those blocking patterns do emerge. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another one occur this year. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.